So, okay, so what we're gonna do is do training on the buttoning up of a enrollment, okay? So some of this stuff's going to pertain to whether it's a re-enrollment or a new enrollment, but we're really gonna put emphasis on new enrollments and delivering the blue book and the conversation that has to happen, okay? So just because we write business at an enrollment and we get paid on it doesn't mean that that business is gonna stick. The most important thing is making sure those deductions get started. So you can write $10,000 worth of business, but if that business doesn't start deducting on time, that's going to affect your persistency and in your first 7 months, your DCN, which is basically the quality of your business. So it's not what you write, it's what you keep. So this part is very, very important. And Diana is fantastic at buttoning up her enrollment. So I just wanted to set the stage. This is going to be a lot of information because it's a very important conversation that has to happen between you as the representative and the payroll person. Okay, so not necessarily the decision maker, but the payroll person. And you want to make sure you're having that conversation with the correct person, which I know Diana will emphasize. Just because you close the business with the decision maker, if he doesn't do the payroll deductions, you don't want to do the blue book conversation and the what comes next form with the decision maker because he's not the one doing the deductions. So we've had it where we've had the conversation with the DM and then they never get those deductions to the payroll because the DM's busy, right? And then he thinks it's done and he totally forgets to get the deductions to the right person. Well, that's not really his job. So it's our job as the representatives to make sure we have that conversation with the correct person. Okay. And it's pretty easy not to forget because on the what comes next form, that on the signature line, it says the payroll administrator. So it doesn't say owner of the business or decision maker or whatever, but it's the payroll person. So I just wanted to make sure I set the stage of having the conversation with the correct person. And then the other thing is it has to be a meeting. Okay. Because I know we get busy and stuff like that, but it's very, very important that it's a sit down meeting where they're acknowledging when to start those deductions and they're acknowledging everything that you're talking about. You never want to just drop that blue book off with somebody else and say, hey, can you give this to Susan, the payroll person or whatever? Very, very important that it's an actual conversation. But you want to have that meeting because the other thing that Diana is going to go over is the client feedback form, which gives you an opportunity to collect referrals. So you just closed that business, you just enrolled it, it went well. Now let's get referrals. Let's continue this. Let's start creating that referral tree where, we do all that work, finally closing a business. Now you can turn that one business into 5 businesses. So we'll go over that too. Okay, so make sure you have your papers in front of you, notebook and pen, and then let's give Diana undivided attention.
Okay, so those of you that are on Zoom, I'm going to share my screen so you can see what everybody else is looking at. I created this post-enrollment checklist, and this is what I use. I seriously have this in my folders whenever I go to an enrollment, whether it's a first enrollment or a re-enrollment, so I can keep track for myself. I prefer to have a check sheet that I can keep track of myself. Okay, so the very first thing that you're going to be looking at is the what comes next form, which is a handout that I also provided to you. And I have a blue book here for you to see an example if you're still new and you haven't seen one of these. Okay, so what I do whenever I'm done with my enrollment, whether it's new or a re-enrollment, I usually try to do the bookkeeper's benefits, the last person that I speak to. Okay. And then I'll be like, okay, so we've got you enrolled for your no cost benefits. Go through if they get any benefits. That's great. Okay. And then also, Joe, I have just a little bit of business to go through with you. You're the one who does the deductions. Is that correct? Yes. Again, if it's a re-enrollment, you already know that, but you want to double check whenever you are at that new enrollment, if it's the decision maker or if it's the bookkeeper. Okay. So I'm going to use Cope Marine because that's the easiest one. I just did that one with Julie. Okay. So I do Julie's re-enrollment and then I'm like, okay, now we're going to talk about this stuff. So I have my what comes next form. Okay. And when I'm looking at my what comes next form, the most important part at the top, I'm not going to read this to them, but I'm going to make sure that they understand the deductions are going to start with the first paycheck in February. Okay. I'm going to make sure I get you those deduction changes no later than the last week of January. Okay. Now, this is when your payroll person might be like, oh man, I'm going to need that on a Monday. I need that Monday, January 24th. I can't wait until January 31st. Like, I need that earlier because we're weekly, especially if your franchise is a weekly pay, they need more time. You can't send it to them February 2nd because they've already done payroll for that first week. Does that make sense? So this is part of the conversation. You want to make sure that you know when you're supposed to have those deductions for them. Okay. That's the second bullet point on your paper. When will you give them the deductions? Okay. You have to find out when they absolutely positively need it. Okay. That's part of that conversation. Now, Julie, is the 31st of January, is that going to be enough time for you to get that payroll switched over? Oh yeah. We're bi-weekly, so I've got 2 weeks. If they need it on the 24th, then that's something that you need to keep in mind. Okay. On the what comes next form, that first line, deductions begin with the first pay period in February. Okay. That's important for them to know because that's, especially if it's a re-enrollment, those are when those changes take place. Okay. They have to pull from the paychecks before the invoices due. The second line is your first bill or your first updated bill will be due March 1st. Okay. So they need to know I'm pulling money from February's checks so that I can pay the bill in March. Everybody cool on that? Okay. Then the plan year ends the year after. That's not that big of a deal. The next part is the quality manager. I fill in Amanda Amrine's name there. Okay. And it says, that what I say to them is like, okay, our quality manager, Amanda, she's going to give you a call the first week of February to make sure that everything's good, to make sure you've got deductions started. If you've missed any of those deductions or you have any questions, she can help you with that. Make sense? Okay. Then in number 2 bullet point is talking about how I have explained this to every single person that whenever I enrolled with them, that they are enrolled for a year. It's just like on your health insurance, they're enrolled for a year unless they have a qualified status change, meaning marriage, divorce, legal separation, birth, death of a child, something like that. Okay. So everybody should be locked in, and we explain that to each employee. Okay. If they need to make a change or they're wanting to make a change, they need to contact me directly. Okay. That's trying to, you're trying to take the pressure off of your bookkeeper, trying to keep them from having to make changes all year long because it's very, very annoying to them if they have to keep changes, but also that helps with your persistency too. You want them to pay for the whole year. If they're going to take it for 2 months and then cancel, that's going to screw your DCN, okay, your persistency. Okay. Bullet point number 3 is if they need to make a change during the plan year, this is the contact information. I'm going to fill in my name, my cell phone number comes first, and then the office phone number. And when I explain that to my people, I'm like, okay, well, this is my contact information. Call me or text me at my cell phone number because I'm not always in the office. Okay. You can leave me a message in the office if you want, but I'm not there often. So then it's kind of just dependent on when I can get to that. Okay. And then at the very bottom, you're going to make sure that they can see that, like obviously you can have them read those last 3 bullet points. I don't really talk about that one, but it's basically reminding them like the reason that we're enrolled for a year and they're not making any changes is to make it less work for you. Okay. We know you are busy. We don't want to make you have to do payroll changes every 2 months. And then also because you're in compliance, section 125 is just like the health insurance. You're supposed to be enrolled for a year. So then I have already filled this out. I usually fill this out before I go and talk to them. I put my name at the top. I put their account number, company name. I sometimes have to leave the phone number. Depends on if I already know their phone number or not. But this is who signs it, the payroll person. Okay. Payroll person needs to sign that. This is an in-person conversation. Even if it's a re-enrollment, it's an in-person conversation. If you're on a virtual enrollment, try to have that conversation over the phone, not just via email. Because I will tell you, I've tried to do it just over email. And a lot of times they don't sign this form. And then there's issues. And so it's based on how you have that relationship with your people, with your accounts. This is exactly the same. I'll be like, remember last year, this is the same form we did last year, but I still say the same thing. I still say, remember your deductions are going to change in February. That updated bill is going to come in March. my quality manager, Amanda, she's going to give you a call in the first week of February just to see if you need any help. Remember, everybody's locked in for a year. If they have to make any changes, then they're going to contact me directly so that it takes less pressure off of you. I need you to sign down here at the bottom. Yes, Craig.
One thing too with a re-enrollment, sometimes if we have to change that re-enrollment date, it's really important to review that because those new deductions may start at a different time than last year.
Yeah, so let's say like a school, okay, and you always enroll in August, and so then they know their deductions always start in September. Well, then with COVID, everything switched, right? So now we're enrolling in January. Well, then that bookkeeper might be like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to make changes until September because we've always done it in September. If that happens, that's going to mess everything up. They have to make those deductions the month after. Okay, that's why this conversation is super important. You sign this and it's duplicate form. Right now, you just have a photocopy, but it's a duplicate form. You should tear it apart. You keep the yellow, they get the white. Okay, they put it in their folder. You bring it back to the office and you're going to turn that in. I take a Scan Genius of mine and I keep a track of it. I'm going to show you later how I keep a digital copy of it and I send it to them as well so that it shows them that they've signed it. And then I turn in the real one because I want to make sure I CYA. That's just how I, okay. When you have the blue book, if you have the blue book for a brand new case, I've already had this conversation. I'm still doing that. Your what comes next form is on the inside of this guy right here. So I just had that conversation. I'm just carrying in a blue book with me instead of just being a re-enrollment in my folder. Okay. The next part is I'm going to say there's a brochure in the top of this in this folder. This is not the brochure. I'm just pretending because we already did this. There's a brochure right here for our online billing. Okay. Your first bill is going to be a paper bill. When you're filling out your section 125, never, ever, 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 ever say request online billing. Don't do that. Say, yes, we want paper because online billing only sends it to the email and then sometimes the email doesn't work or whatever. Don't do that. Just have them get their paper invoice for the bill. Then the bookkeeper is like, oh, we pay all of our stuff online. Perfect. There's a brochure in here. This is our online billing situation. You call this 1-800 number. They're going to walk you through the process, get you all set up for online billing. When you're in the online billing portal, it's actually really, really nice now. They can go in, they can print an invoice, they can make changes on their invoice to like say this person is terminated, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But you want them to get the paper invoice first, okay? Then this is the section 125 paper. Oh, here's the what comes next one, like that, okay? Then this is their account information. They're gonna keep this. It's gonna show them their franchise number. And then it's going to show them their PIN. The PIN is what they're going to use whenever they do the online billing, okay? And then it also shows them their eligibility and their enrollment period, their billing mode, if they're biweekly, semi-monthly, weekly, whatever, okay? To be honest with you, most people just ignore all of this stuff. It's fine, you can open your code. The most important part is to show them where that online billing thing is, okay? When I have this blue book conversation with my new franchises, I'm like, okay, I did my what comes next form, blah, 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 blah. Let me do this. I don't know if you guys can even see me. Here we go. So I did my what comes next form. Okay, Julie, since you guys are a new account with us, I just wanted to get you set up with your section 125. We talked about this at the very beginning. This is the actual section 125 program. To be honest with you, most businesses just file it on the counter. And you only need it if you get audited, okay? If your accountant comes in, they say that they need to see your section 125 paperwork, you can just pull this little binder out, all the paperwork's in here. If you ever have some insomnia, feel free to read it, but it's all set up for you, okay? It's got all the information that we talked about already, your worksite advantage, your section 125, and then I put the payroll form, signed payroll forms, the yellow copy goes in the back of this. Very simple conversation with the blue book. Any questions on the what comes next form or the blue book? That's the most important part. Cool. So then the next part, share my screen again. The next part after that, you're going to do your client feedback form. Okay. When I do my client feedback form, it's at the very end, like after I did my what comes next form, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, by the way, Julie, I am actually, our focus this year has been on better customer service, better client relations. If you don't mind, could you take a few minutes and help me with some feedback, okay? I would love to hear from you about how well the enrollment went, if there's anything else that I can do that would have been better, if you need better communication, anything like that, okay? Down here on the checklist, it gives you a list of all the things that you should have done. You should have gotten an employee list, okay? That would have come with your section 125. Or whenever you get there for your re-enrollment, I always ask them for an updated employee list so I can check people off as I go, okay? It doesn't have to be super intense. You've got your what comes next form, you did your blue book, and then over here on the right-hand side, broker information. When I'm talking to Julie, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, by the way, we're collecting the health insurance broker information. I'm gonna put that in your file. Do you guys use a broker for your health insurance? Okay, perfect. Can I get that information from you? Company, agent's name, phone number. No, that's all you need. Okay, sometimes they're like, can I just email that to you? Sure. If they know it off the top of their head because you're talking to the right person, the payroll person, they'll just jot it down. It's very, very low key, right? I'm just going to add that to your file. Why do you need to know that? Oh, well, we work with a lot of health brokers and, partnerships, but I'm just going to add that to your file just so we know which ones we work with. Okay, no big deal. And then I will say to them, I'll be like, okay, also, we're in a contest. I know it says a recommendation letter. I did that for a while. Now we're doing reviews. Do you mind doing a Google review for us? Like, your opinion matters. If you feel like you have a great relationship with them, would you mind writing a recommendation letter for me that I could share with other businesses that maybe they'd be interested in having our section 1 or our Worksite Advantage program? I have some examples that I already have in my booklet. I could send that over to you so you can see kind of what I'm looking for. Sure. It's going to depend on your relationship with your person, but it doesn't hurt to ask, right? If you don't feel comfortable doing the recommendation letter, I would strongly encourage you to do the Google review. And when you have the Google review, because we're all comfortable asking for that, right? It's super easy. When they do the Google review, just ask them to put their name and that they're the bookkeeper for whatever business. Okay, it gives it a little bit more credibility than just an employee. We should be already doing that. Like, oh, I'm Joe Smith and I work at Cote Marine. Now I'm Julie Harris. I'm the bookkeeper for Cote Marine. Okay, so they're just adding a little extra there. And then the last thing I'll be like, okay, and then also I'm going to be going to a bunch of businesses in your area. Do you have anybody that you guys work with that maybe I could that you think would be interested in hearing what I have to say, or would find value in our Worksite Advantage program? Okay, if they're like, no, okay, well, perfect. I get it. It's hard to come up with people off the top of your head, so that's where the radius referral comes in handy. Okay, I just created a video, and I think I sent it out. Maybe I didn't, but how to create the radius referral from Epic with qualified leads. So I print these out whenever I go to any business. I have a radius referral and I just slide it over. So Craig actually saw me do it. I'll be like, okay, Julie, I'm actually going to be going to these businesses here in the area. Do you recognize any of these people? And she's like, oh, yeah. Our owner, Ken, he works with this guy over here at Gateway Classic Cars because he has 170 classic cars himself. I'm like, oh my God. So more rapport, right? And then another employee was like, oh man, you should go check out Mission Accomplished. I just stopped working there like last year before I came over here. They don't have any benefits. You should go talk to them. The guy's name is Joel. It's that easy. What's the worst thing that can happen? They say, no, I don't really recognize anybody. I've had that happen. I've had somebody that the enrollment didn't go super well. It was a house account, didn't go as well as sometimes it could be. They have some billing issues. And she's like, I just don't feel comfortable sending you anyplace else. I'm like, sure, no problem. Doesn't hurt anything, right? So a radius referral, asking for the client feedback. I've had some people say that they wanted to keep this and send it to me. They can send it to you, send as an email afterwards.
Yes.
That's fine. But it doesn't hurt to ask. And I've gotten, I would say maybe 20% if I email it to them, but if I hand it to them and having a conversation, then almost always they return it to me. And of course, it's always positive because I'm awesome. But no, I'm just kidding. Okay. I know, Mallory. Any questions on that part, on the client feedback form?
So they fill it out.
I almost never have them fill out in front of me. Most people that like I have a conversation with, they want to keep it and write on it. Like they'll get it back to me like either later that day, because if I'm still there, if I'm not doing that one at the very end, or they'll email it over to me is what I've had most people do.
Do you like, would you just ask them for it? Would you should, say, hey, like,
I'm going to tell you I'm going to tell you how to do that here. Just 1 second. Okay. So let's say, you did the what comes next form, you did the blue book, you did the client feedback form, right? Everything's gravy, you've got all the things that you need, and then you leave that business. Okay, we all know how to do that part, right? When I do the deduction spreadsheet, okay, if I'm doing a new case with a blue book, I'm going to do the deduction spreadsheet and I'm going to take the deduction spreadsheet, print it out with me when I do the blue book. That's when I'm talking them through it. Like, here is your what comes next form. Here are your deductions. I'm showing it to you in person. Here's your blue book. Put it on the shelf. Bookkeeper, here it is in print form so that I know that they got it, right? Because we all know email can be iffy sometimes. But then I'm going to go back home and I'm going to email it too. So they have a digital copy and they have a paper copy. So there's no excuses. They're like, I didn't get any deductions. I have no idea what you're talking about, right? On the deduction spreadsheet, there is a template for what you're supposed to say in your email. Okay, that's that last sheet. I have this on my computer and I just copy it and then I change the highlighted language. Okay, and some of it I keep highlighted actually so they can see first deductions begin in February. Your updated bill will be in March. Okay, I'm going to email this to them. And then at the bottom, it even gives you a list of all the things you're supposed to attach. You're supposed to attach the digital deduction spreadsheet. You're supposed to attach the signed payroll forms. Okay, I take a Scan Genius of them and it's a PDF so that they have a copy of it. If it's a new enrollment, I've given them the yellow copies and they have a PDF of it. Because what happens if an employee comes back in 2 months and they're like, I don't know why I have this money coming out of here. Then the bookkeeper can open up the email or they can open up the blue book and say, well, you signed up for life insurance for this much and the cancer plan for this much. Oh, that's right. Okay, they have a documentation, that person that signed it, what they signed up for, instead of them having to contact me. What did they sign up for? Okay, you're going to email this email with all the attachments to the DM, the owner of the business, and the bookkeeper. I email both of them. Okay, and then I CC myself, I CC my SA, my AD, and QM. It's a lot of people, right? It's a lot of people to remember, but you want everybody above you to know I got a copy of it so that if for some reason she calls and the business owner is like, I don't know what you're talking about. We never got that. And she can be like, no, it was sent on this day at this time. This is where it is. And then they can pull it up and resend it. Okay. They're trying to field all of those questions for us so that we don't have to get pulled out of the field to try to fix things like that. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. You're going to include the PDF of the signed payroll forms. I show all deductions for our franchise. I show all deductions. I don't care how old that franchise is. I don't care how many employees there is. I have a Cahokia school district that I worked with last year, 700 employees. Okay, it's a big spreadsheet. It's a lot of work, but I include all of them. And then I highlight the ones that have changed so they can find them on the deduction spreadsheet. If the payroll person asks for something different, like I only want to see the changes, I will create a second spreadsheet. I have the one that has all the deductions, and then I have one that's just the changes. And then I've started listing the changes as well. Like, because sometimes, for instance, Sarah has $10 coming out from Career Life Plus, okay? And then she decides to increase her Career Life Plus by $10. Now her deduction should be $20, right? So this actually happened with Cahokia School District. He only did the new $10 and the first two $10. The first $10 policy fell off because he did it increase by 10. I wasn't clear enough. This is an additional 10. So now it should be 20. Does that kind of make sense? So as specific as you can possibly be. Some people need it in an Excel format. Some people need it in a Google Sheets format. I always print mine first as a PDF because then they can't screw it up, right? It's the PDF, and then I send it. And then if they email me back and they're like, can you possibly please send it to me Excel? Then yeah, I can translate that. And if you don't know, if you're not super computer savvy and you don't know how to do that, I can totally help you with those, the format changes, okay? But start with a PDF. That way they can mess with the cells and the formulas and stuff. Again, in the email, you're going to note in that second paragraph, you're going to note when the deductions will start and when the updated bill takes place. Okay, I literally copy paste this. I don't even care how many times I've done it. They've seen the same thing. And then at the very, very top, it's highlighted. Please reply back to confirm receipt of this email. That way you can see if they like got the information. Okay, you're just covering your own tushy here. The more communication you can have with your bookkeeper and your DM, the more likely you are to get your policies paid for, paid on time, which means that your persistency stays high. And to be honest, our agency has one of the highest persistencies in the whole company because we do a good job of doing this. But if I've seen agents where they've sent a deduction spreadsheet, okay, your deduction spreadsheet's attached. Those should start next week. Have a great day. Bink. Okay, and then those policies don't get paid for. And then you're going back and scrambling and like, let's double deduct and all this. It's like a hot mess. So the more information that you can give at the front end, if you can just follow these steps, bam, 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 I guarantee you, you will have more success than if you just try to fly by the seat of your pants. There's a reason that we have a system and there's a reason why people are successful and they do it the same way every single time. Like I literally keep this with me. Check, 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 check. So that I know I've done it. Like, and I've been doing it for 2.5 years. You would think I could just remember, but no, I keep a checklist to make sure I do it right. Okay. What questions do you guys have on any of this stuff? Okay, at the end of the enrollment, we do what comes next form, blue book if you need it, client feedback form. That's whenever you're going to ask for referrals, recommendation letters, right? And then whenever you get back, you're going to email over the deduction spreadsheet along with that email that's template and then all the attachments. Please don't go home and retype this. Please don't go home and retype this. I'm going to email it to you and you copy paste. Okay. Like somebody, whenever I first started, they were like, can you retype this? And I'm like, so don't do that. That's too much work. Like somebody else did the wheel. Don't recreate the wheel. Save yourself time. Steal from somebody else. Right? Okay. Anything else? Any questions? All right. I'm going to stop recording then.